Thank you for the meditation, Val. That was very nice. Yeah. So this morning I'm going to be talking about the Buddha Sutra and non-existence. Torkim Saradarian authored a book titled The Buddha Sutra. One of the chapters in the book includes a respectful dialogue between Torkim and the Buddha, where Torkim is questioning the Buddha's teaching on non-existence. So I'm going to be sharing in the beginning of the talk this morning a few of those quotes, which include his questioning of the Buddha about non-existence. And then also he goes on later in the book to talk about the self and the cosmic self. So that's what I'll be sharing this morning. Of course, his questioning of the Buddha was very respectful. And what I really enjoyed about it is knowing Torkim and his straightforward manner and fearless manner, to have the knowledge and the wisdom and the accumulation of so much of his studies over the years that he could even formulate a question to the Buddha. So his questioning was not coming from a belligerent or challenging or conceited point of view. It was because he had spent so much time, not just this incarnation, we know that, but many incarnations studying and learning and having intuitive insight and contact with the great ones of higher realms, that now he wanted to bring our attention to the same questions that he was having. And through his questions, he found his answers. So we will too. So here are some of his questions. He said, Buddha, I am sure you did not teach the non-existence of the capital S self. Why to teach about something that does not exist? Why teach non-existence? He said, in my heart, I feel you told your disciples that the self, the capital S self, is one. That there is no separate self in essence, but in manifestation, this separate self must achieve oneness with the one self through your teaching. He, meaning Torkim, asked, he said, is it true that the capital S self is not yet born in average man? But you were a man. Christ was a son of man. And both of you, along with other venerable sages, were cosmic selves. You had as yourself the cosmic self. But being a cosmic self, you were also a Buddha, the Sakyamuni, as was Jesus the Christ. He said, can I think that you don't exist if I believe that this self is an illusion? Isn't that gutsy? It's so deep. It's so deep. He said, when you foretold about the coming Maitreya, was he in existence or non-existence? My Lord, they did not realize that the extinction of the lower self is gradually achieved when one becomes a part of the one self. This is what nirvana is. The extinction of all in us that separates us from the realization of oneness. And the last quote, "My Lord, you wanted us to be Buddhas. Didn't you mean to be immortal beings, not limited by the chains of the three worlds? And if not, why to be a Buddha if the end is annihilation?" It's a great book. It was Torkim's belief that where the followers of Buddha are very intelligent, he also believed the subject of non-existence created a misunderstanding regarding the Buddha's teachings about non-existence. He believed that the Buddha was teaching an existence beyond the measures of the existence we are in. By saying, my Lord, the teachings of great ones like yours fall into the measures of our ignorance. As we try to understand the Buddha's teachings of non-existence, it is helpful to recognize through Torkim's lens of understanding that each person in his or her essence is the capital S self, the cosmic self. And I want to digress just a minute from this because trying to keep the news of the day in front of us fearlessly, we know that the COVID, the pandemic, now certainly in the United States is increasing. People's health is deteriorating, more and more people are being tested, and so forth. And I just want to remind everybody, first of all, within White Mountain, not one person, not one single person has gotten COVID. That's not being said pridefully or in any way. It is saying we're following COVID rules, CDS rules. What is it? CDC. What CDS is? Anyway, CDC rules. But we do believe in the cosmic self. We do not believe that life is reduced to one life. We have been through pandemics, through epidemics. Read Agni Yoga. Do a compilation on epidemics, on pandemics. It goes back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Fast forward to today, there are more people on the planet than ever before. We have a communication, a worldwide communication system now that reports all the minutest of details, which then activates the fears in everybody, depending on the media that they're listening to and the person that is reporting. My challenge is go to the teaching. Don't go to the media very much. I mean, we have to keep ourselves informed, right? But what is the teaching for, if not for times like this? Don't put the books of the teaching and your knowledge in a drawer and live in a bubble of your fear. Why waste this precious life in a bubble of fear? Why do that? So I just really wanted to share this talk today about non-existence, and the Buddha and Torkim's lens of understanding, in hopes that it will give you strength and courage and bring you back into the teaching if you're no longer studying, and really remember that when you are bathing yourself in the aura of the teaching. You are bathing yourself in the immortality of the great ones, their words, their lives. So each person in his or her essence is the self, the cosmic self. However, we are not yet the embodiment of that self. We are not yet a Buddha or Christ. We are in reality found in different stages of this great unfolding self. For example, these different stages include, there's 7 stages of the unfolding self. The first is the body, then emotions, then the mental body, then the personality. All 3 of those first stages now formulate the 4th stage. We have become a personality. Then an ego, then a soul, and then the self. These are the 7 stages of the unfolding self and the all self, which I'm not going to talk about this morning, the all self. All of these stages are periods of our unfoldment until we come to the final realization that we are the one self. As we live through the pandemic, as we suffered the atrocities of World War I and II, and yes, even the horrors of 9/11, many spiritual and non-spiritual people began to renew their thoughts about life and death, pain and suffering, wondering about the purpose of light and life in those who lost their lives during these historic events. It wasn't even as naive or perhaps ignorant to turn our backs to these events, and continue to live our lives as if nothing happened or will happen in the future that will have an effect on our life. We can't turn away from the effects. If you are a parent, now is the time to establish more than ever in that child, in that grandchild, in your family dynamics, a sense of stability, joy, meaning, and purpose in your family environment. You're going to need to present a sense of hope for the future and the sense of the continuity of life. So you can't do these things if you're living in the bubble of fear. You just cannot. Continuity of life. You will not be able to do these things if your source of strength is ego and vanity and intellectualism. If there was ever a time to take a deep and realistic look at the spiritual path, now is the time. This chapter from the Buddha Sutra will give us some answers and inspire further search. So let's take a look at non-existence. When you die, do you believe you will no longer exist? If your friend, your teacher, your spouse, or even your pet dies, do you believe that person or pet will no longer exist? There have been many accounts of people who have been inspired by their deceased friend, their parent, their teacher, their spouse. Where and when there is a need. So like yesterday, I was talking to a young woman who lost her husband a few years ago, and it was not a good marriage. And so they're parting for her was very difficult. She's an extremely psychic, intuitive woman. And she said the last 2 months he's been in touch with her. And they've been working through the problems that they had during their marriage. And it's been so healing and soothing. Some of you have experienced encouragement from your guardian angel. We are told that even beyond the physical life, our guardian angel will be with us, protect us, and heal us. If after death we became non-existent, then why strive? Why try to better yourself, right? Why strive on the path of perfection? Why would your guardian angel be with you in life and death? If we allow ourselves to be sensitive enough, when we lose a dear one, that dear one is going to connect with us through different signs. I remember so many years ago, my husband's cousin died suddenly. He was 21. He was engaged in a activity of service, helping another person. And as he went through an intersection, a drunk driver came along and killed him. It was horrible. It affected all of us so deeply. The next day, as I was driving to work, and he was part of our working team, there was a St. Bernard dog walking along this street that I always went down this street every single day, to get to work. Never, ever did I ever see a St. Bernard dog. That was his favorite dog. So I'm driving to work, in total grief because I loved him so much. And along comes this St. Bernard, and he and I are looking at one another. That's a sign. These are indications that the Buddha was teaching something else when he taught about non-existence. What was it? He was teaching the difference between reality and illusion. What is real and what is false. The degree that your capital S self is in manifestation is the degree that you are real, that you exist, that you are in contact with the purpose of life. Rumi said, "The bamboo flute, which appeals to you so much, mourns over its separation from its home, the original bamboo." Rumi is reminding us that we as a self, the capital S self, as an unfolding soul, have been separated from our source. See, the true self. When we are back in contact with our true self, we will find this source of faith and hope. One night, a few years ago, I was listening to an interview between Larry King and Lisa Beamer. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Lisa is the wife of the former Todd Beamer. He was 32 years old. I don't know if you remember his name or not. He was the one who lost his life on the United Airlines Flight 93 and believed to have been one of the heroes instrumental in fighting the terrorists who hijacked that plane on September 11th. Larry King asked Lisa about the source of her strength. She said it is faith. Her faith is a source of her strength. So where does faith come from? Does it come from books? Does it come from the Bible or other religious books? Is faith dependent on our intelligence level? I think that we do not really know if we have faith until we are facing a severe crisis or loss. It is then we learn about faith, about hope, about the existence of the self. At least this has been my experience. You see, it is only those who have loved and not gone forward are those who have lost. Faith moves us forward. The teaching says the source of our faith is not made of intelligence, but of the heart. Faith is found in one's heart. Faith is a confidence that all possibilities exist. Where oftentimes our reasoning and logic give up, the heart still searches for an answer. Faith is knowing that God is within you. It is through faith you know the existence of things that you cannot see. Faith is the intuitive knowledge that life exists. Isn't this a good definition of faith? Faith is the intuitive knowledge that life exists, that you know the existence of things that you cannot see. Lisa Beamer lost her husband, but she knows that spiritually he still exists. She told Larry King that she will be with her husband again one day in heaven. That is her faith. And right now she's just very busy raising those 3 kids. The self is anchored in the heart. It shines like a pure flame as pure love feeds it. It is through the heart the first rays of faith shine forth. Faith in knowing that God is within you, this great presence is within you, that the Most High is within you, and that God is in each atom, each cell of your being. We are made in his likeness and image, right? That's what this means. The self is the core of your being. It is the developing, unfolding human soul. We have a lower self, which is the combination of our physical, emotional, and lower mental nature. The degree that we can detach our real self from the combination, that combination is the degree of our existence. Our degree of detachment is the measure of how much of our life is real. See, if our total focus is on fear of death, fear of getting COVID-19, we are totally attached to the physical life. There is no faith there. Our degree of detachment is the measure of how much of our life is real and how much is unreal. It is the difference between our non-existence and our existence. The spiritual path is a path of achieving oneness with the one self. It is the path of our evolution. Anything that we think and feel and do that leads us from achieving oneness with the one self is the path of non-existence. So now you know what the path of non-existence is all about. It is true that the capital S self is not yet born in the average person. Average person means the unawakened person. To be an average person means that you do not yet exist. It means you are not yet in touch with the God within you, the self within your heart. It means you are just running after, and this is a quote by Torkim, running after your tail. The tail of money, the tail of illusion, the tail of involution. A person who is in touch with the self within their heart is the one who is detaching the real from the unreal. A person who is living a life in accordance with the purpose of their soul is one who begins to sense their real existence. It's like if when you have an out-of-body experience, when you recognize through maybe just a momentary experience that you're doing something, and all of a sudden this something is looking at your physical body. It's like you're separated a little bit. Your consciousness is separated a little bit from the physical body. It's in the etheric body now. And you say, my God, what is this? What is this? That's when, this is such a beautiful gift that we're given, to have these kind of experiences, because that teaches there is more to life than physical existence, more to our life. There's more of us beyond the physical. So let me repeat this. A person who is living a life in accord with the purpose of their soul is one who begins to sense their real existence. They do not see their body and say, I exist because I have a body. This is illusion. They do not say, I have emotion, and so I exist. That too is an illusion. It is the person who sees themselves as a soul, as a spark of the Almighty Self that begins to sense their real existence. Can you say that you have had that experience? It is such knowledge that leads you forward. When I was in college, I had an out-of-body experience, the first time that I could remember anyway, and I was playing the violin. I was with the orchestra. We had a 3-hour rehearsal, and we were in the middle of a break, and I was really thirsty. So I put the violin in the case, and I went out into the hall and leaned over to have a sip of water, and the next thing I knew, I was on the ceiling. Well, you can imagine a college kid, having this experience. So my brother, who was at the same university, I called him and I said, I think something's wrong with me. So I told him, he says, yeah, there is definitely something wrong with you. So he took me to the clinic there at the university, and they couldn't find anything wrong. They said just rest for a few days. Well, I just had an out-of-body experience. I didn't realize that this was my first indication that I was more than the physical body. I didn't think about the cosmic self. I didn't know about the cosmic self. But I knew that I was more than that physical kid, trying to get through college. I was more than that. It was very cool. If we accept the immortality of the Buddha, we must try to accept the immortality of the Buddha and the Christ if we can accept that they will return, then we're going to accept their immortality. See? They will return, for this is, we are told, in all scriptures that's going to happen. We are told by all great ones that they were here to lead the way, and that if we follow the way, we can not only do the things that they did, but we can do even greater things. This is what they promised us. But we want to stay in that little bubble, of comfort and fear and all the things that we load up in that bubble, and then it, suffocates us. They were here to lead the way. This is an indication to us of the continuity of life and the immortality of life. So live your life fearlessly, not stupidly, but fearlessly. And you'll keep your immune system intact. Fear destroys your immune system. Did you know that? It destroys your immune system. Fear. Nirvana is the extinction of all in us that separates us from the realization of oneness. Torkim, in one of his questions to the Buddha, said, "My Lord, you wanted us to be Buddhas. Didn't you mean to be immortal beings, not limited by the chains of these three worlds?" Each of us, over the coming days, we can ask ourselves these questions. What are the chains that are limiting me? What are the chains that are limiting me? What are the physical chains, emotional chains, thoughts that are chaining me to the world of non-existence, of illusion, and the unreal? Once you find your answers to these questions, then ask yourself, what in me is real? What in me is a manifestation of this self within my heart, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually? The self is the divinity within us, the creative center within us. The self is a source of light and love and power within us. So how much of the self is manifested in your day-to-day life? How much of the unreal is controlling your day-to-day self or life? It is easy to live a life of non-existence, of non-reality. How? Well, one example would be due to a person's vanity. Vanity causes very serious problems to a person who is on the spiritual path. When a person is controlled by their vanities, they are controlled by their lower nature, that lower self. Unable to build their higher bodies, the Buddhic body, their Buddhic consciousness, even a clear sensing mechanism to inner guidance. Vanity prevents. For example, vanity says, "I know it all. You can't tell me anything new." Vanity makes it impossible for this self to manifest and run a person's life. That's how serious, beyond a pandemic, vanity is to your existence. Vanity is a controlling, owning factor. Once vanity digs its tail into your personality, it becomes nearly impossible for your capital S self to manifest in your life. One of your priority goals needs to be to give birth to yourself. That is a goal. That is a priority in your life. The God within your heart to live and act as the self. This is a noble goal, but vanities prevent us from attaining this goal. And why is this? Because vanities keep the self occupied. I have to use capital and lower case. I'm sorry, but when you see it in writing, it makes sense. And if you hear it, it's like, what? So, why is this? Because vanities keep the capital S self occupied with the masks of the false little s self. Vanities keep the capital S self occupied with the masks of the false little s self. It means that there is a vacuum between us and because the capital S self is absent in us. If the self is absent in us, this means then that we are living a non-existent life, a life of illusion. Your vanities become your standards. This is horrifying to me. Horrifying. Your vanities become your standards. Why is it horrifying? Because, I've lived long enough now in this life to recognize if the purpose of life is to build my vanity, why go through all we go through to live a life? To become somebody that we're not. To unfold something that we are not. Why do we go through all the pain and the suffering and then the awakening, the illuminating process go through? Because the illuminating process is not necessarily a joyful process till you know what's happening. If it's only to build our sense of self-importance, see, then we've got it wrong. We have it wrong. It's not how much better I am than you. It's how we're all growing together according to the purpose of our life. We don't want our vanities to become our standards. Vanity has its own logic. Do you know that? Vanity has its own logic. It builds a prison in you and keeps you happy there. You think in your vanity that you are a temple of wisdom. So compare your wisdom to Buddha. Compare your vanity, your standard that's based on your vanities. Compare that level of your wisdom-vanity to the masters. Even the people that we have read and known that have been alive during our lifetime. These great ones, like Mahatma Gandhi. Compare who you think your vanity-wisdom is to Mahatma Gandhi. Mother Teresa, all the ones that we always bring up in our talks. So if somebody touches one of those little buttons we call touchiness, and you react, wait, is this vanity-wisdom? See, reacting? Or is this my unfolding process toward becoming the capital S self? So when somebody, whether it is a parent, a sibling, a co-worker, a teacher, happens to trigger that little touchy button, and you find that vanity-wisdom reacting, how could you? Say, wait, back up a minute. What are those 7 stages of the unfolding process of this self am I stuck in? Can you imagine the Buddha having a touchy button? No. You think you are a temple of wisdom, but if your temple is built on the foundation of vanity, sooner or later you're going to witness the destruction of the values you tried to build on an unstable foundation. Do you see how this works? Let's say that you have certain values you try to live your life by. These values seem to have made your life pretty happy and stable. Then a crisis occurs. The values disappear and are replaced with fear, anger, depression, negative feeling sorry for yourself. And you find yourself asking things like, I've lived according to the teaching, why are these bad things happening to me? The answer is you have built your temple of wisdom on an unstable foundation, on the foundation of vanity. We must all begin to recognize all that which is in our life, our emotional life, our thinking life, our physical life, which separates us from the realization of oneness, is separating us from the true self. Do you think you have vanities that are preventing you from manifesting the self? I recall my teacher saying one day, who was Torkim, he was saying one day in a lecture, if you suspect you may have vanities in your nature, find a teacher and ask that person to work on your vanities and to destroy them, putting you under heavy discipline. A true teacher will not condemn you for having vanities, but if you are willing, that teacher will show you one of your vanities and then push you to overcome it. Of course, the majority of people are not going to do this, for vanity has already buried its roots in their personality life, misleading them into living a life of non-existence. To live a life of non-existence is to live a life separate from the one self. So, now you know about non-existence and what the Buddha was teaching. We have the Buddha Sutra in our bookstore, and you can go online to the website and order it, and we'll get it out to you as fast as the post office will allow us to do it. And one other thing before we wrap up, I just want to, for those of you online particularly, and we appreciate your support, we have just released the announcement about our March Agni Yoga Living Ethics Conference. So go to our website. On the menu and down at the bottom of the home page, there's buttons you can click that'll take you to the conference page, and it's going to be a beautiful experience. You know, you can register now. It's going to be basically a virtual conference. Some of it will be physical, but everything will be available virtually, and it's by donation only, no set charge. Yeah, it's a big deal for us. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Go to the website when you have some time this afternoon, and it'll take you about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe longer, to get through that conference webpage, because there are videos and bios and pictures and all kinds of wonderful information.